Welcome to 100 Stories for My Daughter. Here you'll find short and inspiring stories for children and adults about love, dreams, and believing in yourself. Each story is a small gift for the soul. Listen, share, and be inspired. Once, in a kingdom surrounded by lush forests and rolling hills, there lived a kind-hearted princess named Snow White. Despite her beauty and grace, Snow White often doubted herself, growing up in the shadow of her stepmother, the Queen. The Queen was admired for her beauty, but she held on to it with a grip of fear, always seeking assurance from her enchanted mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall," the Queen would ask each day, "who is the fairest of them all?" "Your beauty is unmatched, my Queen," the mirror would reply. But one fateful morning, the mirror gave a different answer. "Your beauty fades next to Snow White's kindness, for true beauty comes from the heart." The Queen's smile froze, then turned into a sneer. Jealousy burned within her. Snow White's inner light was something the Queen felt she could never possess. That evening, the Queen summoned a huntsman. "Take Snow White into the forest and ensure she never returns," she ordered coldly. Snow White, confused by her stepmother's sudden decision, reluctantly followed the huntsman the next morning. But the man, moved by her innocence, couldn't carry out the cruel command. "Run, princess," he urged. "Run and don't look back." Heartbroken and frightened, Snow White fled into the dark forest. The forest was vast and unfamiliar. Twisting branches stretched overhead, casting eerie shadows. Every sound, an owl's hoot, the crunch of leaves, sent shivers down Snow White's spine. She stumbled forward, her dress snagging on thorns. "I don't belong here," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. But as she walked, the forest seemed to soften. Sunlight trickled through the canopy, and birds sang comforting melodies. Soon, she came upon a clearing where a small cottage stood nestled among wildflowers. It was quaint, with tiny windows and a roof covered in moss. Snow White knocked gently, but no one answered. Desperation pushed her to open the door. Inside, she found a cozy but cluttered room filled with tiny chairs, mismatched plates, and a table piled with tools and books. Exhausted, she cleaned up a little, then curled up in a corner to rest, hoping whoever lived here might be kind enough to help her. The next morning, Snow White awoke to hushed voices. Standing around her were 7 small figures, each with a distinct expression. "Who is she?" muttered one with a gruff voice. "She's in our house," exclaimed another, his face bright with curiosity. "Let's not scare her," said a calm voice, stepping forward. This was Doc, the eldest of the 7. "Who are you, and what brings you here?" Snow White explained her story, her voice trembling as she recounted her stepmother's jealousy. The dwarfs listened intently. "You can stay," Doc said finally, "but you'll have to pull your weight. We each have jobs, and you'll need one too." Snow White nodded eagerly. "I'll do whatever I can, thank you." The dwarfs introduced themselves. Doc, the wise leader; Happy, whose laugh could lift anyone's spirits; Grumpy, who always seemed annoyed but had a good heart; Sleepy, who valued rest above all else; Bashful, kind but shy; Dopey, silent yet observant, and Sneezy, who had an uncanny ability to sense when something was wrong. Living with the dwarfs was both a challenge and a joy. Each of them had something to teach Snow White. Doc helped her understand the importance of thinking things through. If a problem feels too big, he said, break it into smaller pieces. Together, they solved puzzles in the dwarf's workshop, and Snow White felt her confidence grow. Happy showed her how to find joy even in hard times. Laughter makes everything easier, he said, and his cheerful energy often lifted her spirits. Grumpy, though blunt, taught her to stand up for herself. Speak your mind, he told her. People can't guess what you want if you don't say it. Sleepy reminded her to rest when she felt overwhelmed. Pushing too hard doesn't help anyone, he said with a yawn. Bashful encouraged her to share her thoughts, even when she felt shy. Your voice matters, he whispered. Dopey's quiet presence showed Snow White the power of observation. Sometimes, answers are right in front of us, she realized, watching him solve a problem without saying a word. Sneezy, often sneezing but always aware, helped her trust her instincts. If something feels wrong, he said, it probably is. Day by day, Snow White felt herself grow stronger and more capable, her fears replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. Meanwhile, the Queen's jealousy grew. She consulted her mirror again. Who is the fairest of them all? Snow White, the mirror replied, whose kindness shines brighter than any jewel. Furious, the Queen crafted a plan. Using dark magic, she disguised herself as an old peddler and created an enchanted apple. One bite, she sneered, and she'll be trapped in doubt and fear. The Queen found Snow White tending to the dwarf's garden. A beautiful apple for a beautiful girl, she said, holding out the fruit. Snow White hesitated, but her kind heart overruled her caution. She took a bite. The moment the apple touched her lips, Snow White felt a wave of doubt crash over her. She collapsed, falling into a deep, troubled sleep. Snow White's dreams were filled with shadows. She heard her stepmother's voice echoing, "You're not good enough. You'll never be enough." But then another voice broke through the darkness. "You are strong," said Doc. "You bring joy," added Happy. "We need you," said Grumpy. The voices of the dwarfs reminded her of everything she had learned. Slowly, the shadows faded, replaced by light. Snow White opened her eyes to see the worried faces of the dwarfs. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," Doc said, smiling. "You saved yourself." Snow White decided to return to the castle, not to seek revenge, but to face her stepmother. With the dwarfs by her side, she approached the Queen. "Your mirror doesn't define your worth," Snow White said calmly, "and neither do I. Beauty isn't what makes us valuable." The Queen's mask of anger cracked. For the first time, she saw herself clearly, not through the mirror, but through Snow White's kindness. Tears welled in her eyes. "I've spent so long trying to be perfect," she admitted, "that I forgot who I am." Snow White offered her hand. "It's never too late to start again." The Queen took it, and together they began the work of healing. Snow White returned to the forest often, her bond with the dwarfs unbreakable. She shared their lessons with the kingdom, teaching others to value kindness, courage, and the unique gifts each person brings. The castle and forest became a place of harmony where everyone was welcome, and Snow White no longer doubted her worth. She had found her strength in friendship, diversity, and the courage to be herself.